So good morning, everybody. So for those of you who doesn't know me yet, so my name is Cheryl Martinek. I'm an Amazon seller in Canada and US for 6 years already, and I've been now teaching Canadian sellers to also sell. So I offer beginners course and also a course for US selling, niching on Canadian products. So if you're interested with that, just send me an email, cheryl@cherylmartinek.com, and I can give you more info. So today we are here with Mr. Mohammad Akif. So thank you very much, Mohammad, for saying yes again on the second interview. So for those of you who doesn't know him, he is a cross-border CPA practicing here in Ontario and also in the US. Actually, we did a first interview before. So if you never watch it, make sure to check my YouTube channel. Just search Cheryl Martinek YouTube, and you're gonna see his first interview. He gave us so many really good information last time, and actually it went like the views are so high because everybody wanted, and I bet that he got a lot of inquiries because of that. And this time he's allowing us to interview him again. But this time we're going to focus on a lot of the issues he's encountering every day for those who are doing Amazon and even Shopify, right? Other online platform. There's so many issues that he's usually encountering, mistakes of all of us that we're doing. So today, I want to introduce you without further ado, Mr. Mohammad Akif. And if you can introduce yourself, Mohammad.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mohammad Akif. So I am a cross-border accountant. I'm registered in Ontario, also in the state of Texas. I do cross-border taxes, dealing with individuals and businesses working cross-border between the United States and Canada. I've been working with this for a very long time. I know we had done this interview previously with Cheryl, trying to understand, trying to make things simple for a lot of people who are selling online. It could be for Amazon, Shopify, or other platforms. We had some discussions last time in terms of how to make this simple and easy. And then, of course, with the queries every day, with leads every day, there are certain issues that I do wanted to discuss with Cheryl, and then her audience more in terms of everyday problems that we normally get from clients just like you. And then we'll go with top 4 ones. I mean, there are plenty of them, but I want to pick top 4s and see, describe them, get a little bit more detail into them, and see how we can get this into a better understanding area than what we had previously. So without any further delay, we can start. So Cheryl, number one thing the biggest issue that we normally get from cross-border sellers, majority Canadian selling in the United States, is the LLC registration. And that is still the biggest issue that we encounter. And then of course, the LLC in the US is for US tax residents. That is the best option there, but not for Canadians. And I've really got in detail in my previous video, why that is a bad idea for Canadians. People still do it. There are other sellers out there, other wholesalers also in the US, urging and then pushing a lot of Canadians to do the LLC. LLC, it's not for everyone. And then the tax structure, the way that is, as described in my previous video, is not for Canadians unless we decide to file in a separate form to make it a corporation. So that's the biggest issue that we normally get. And then for Canadians, it's a big no-no, unless you understand how you'll be taxed in the US, you understand how you'll be taxed on the Canadian side, and then how this is going to work out for you. So LLC is, again, that's number one problem that we normally get, and then we try to fix them. Of course, we get into another conversation about, okay, what the next tax structure could be, how this could help you, but still, the issue is that the understanding, right? I mean, a lot of, again, you go online, you read about it, and everyone is saying LLC, but this is for US residents only. If you do form it, we do have options to fix it, but it has to be timely. Recently, I had another client who has been working in the US through LLC for the last 3 years. And then, of course, they were, initially they were not making money, but now suddenly they have made so much money. There's so many tax implications that is out there, and then now they're stuck. Then there's is only so much that we can do for them. So we have to be careful in terms of how we are trying to do this. It's not about just making money. It's also about keeping the most money to right. We want to make sure that, you know, we are okay on legally and for tax purposes also. So again, not making the, you know, just not making the most money, also keeping the most money. So that's the biggest issue that we encounter. Number two, the big issue that we have.
Can I have a
Sure.
question first?
Go ahead.
Can I have a question first with the LLC registration? For those of you who want to ask question, by the way, for Mr. Mohammad Akif, if you can just type in the chat box, you can ask your question, and then I'll ask him question later if you want some, you know, more information about it. So Mohammad, so just to be clear, so with you, you don't really recommend opening an LLC registration due to tax implications, right? So what is the worst thing that can happen if they end up opening an LLC? Like, you know, they never heard about you, they never saw the videos, and then they already open it, because a lot of, to be honest, in all the groups, in the Amazon groups, a lot of them would say, oh yeah, just open LLC. Like it's there. They give them bad advice. And what happened if they actually opened it? So what would what will be your advice to these people?
Right. So first of all, I mean, you know, LLC, you know, for a Canadian fall into a double taxation area. This is so, you know, there are certain issues with how the US tax the LLC and how the CRA looks at the LLC. So the biggest thing is double taxation. That's number one. How to, if they do fall into it, of course, if it's the first year, we can correct it. We can get into a right tax classification, which is, you know, which is accepted by the CRA, and also the similar on the IRS side. So, you know, so normally what happens is the LLCs are considered disregarded entities for US tax purposes. And what do I mean by that? Is that any one person who owns 100% of the US LLC in the US pays the tax directly, meaning that the LLC does not pay any tax. And then so that's, you know, that's where the problem is with the CRA, because the CRA technically considers this as a corporation. And then so when we have a corporation which is similar to the, you know, let's say, for example, your corporation makes money, the corporation pays taxes. And if you want to take on money, either you get salary or what you get is dividends. These are two ways that you get your paid, you know, yourself paid. If in the US, the company's not paying any taxes, and then you are paying taxes personally. And then on the Canadian side, you know, this is considered a corporation. So anything that you take out from that account in the US, which you have already paid tax on, is considered dividends. So on the US side, it's considered profit for the tax purposes. On the Canadian side, it's considered dividend. So this is the two different tax, you know, income type of income. So any tax that you have paid on the US side will not be applicable on the Canadian side, because the CRA is saying this is dividend. The IRS is saying this is pass-through income. This is profits. So the CRA will deny you tax credits for all the tax you have paid on the Canadian side. That means double taxation, because you end up paying extra tax on that dividend, supposedly dividend, versus the profits on the US side. And that's one big thing.
Yes. So, okay. So we understand that there's really a big tax implication, but what if the seller is already really making good money? So for example, okay, we're doing like 10 million a year, like on selling on Amazon. Like still, is it not recommended to open LLC? Because for a lot of Amazon seller, they always say, oh, you know, we can get more wholesale account whenever we have an entity in the US. It's easier for us to get wholesale account or get a distributor based on the US business, right? So usually that's their reason why they're opening it. It's easier. So what would you advise for those? Like, is it good ideas already? Like, is it time for them to open an LLC because they're already doing really good sales?
I mean, if they're really doing good sales, of course, they can have a US entity. There's no problem having a US entity, but type of entity makes sense, right? I mean, so what makes sense across border? So I know a lot of people do LLCs. Again, the default tax structure is where the problem is. We can change the tax structure. LLC on the US side is complex because LLC can be anything on the US side. It could be a partnership, could be a corporation, could be a simple sole proprietorship, and then it has many other options. So it's not as on the Canadian side is it's very simple. Corporations, partnerships, you have your one promise with the ULC. But on the US side, it's not the case. So if somebody wants to go there, of course they can have, the best structure will be to have a corporation. That's the best structure. But even if they're formed LLC, we can change the structure. But this is only applicable in the year that we're talking about, right? So I'm not going to say, hey, we did this in year one, and then in year 4 we're making $4 million, and then now we're in a pickle because we cannot do anything. This is how it's done. So even if we have time to fix it, but not that much time to fix it. So I don't want, that year could be the year that we can make change, but you have already made the money. The issue is that you have already made the money. So, it's better to understand how LLC can work for you with the change of tax structure or a corporation. So there are only two types of entities that work cross-border. I'll just put it simply out there. One is LP and one is a corporation. That's the only two tax structures that can work across border.
Okay, so thank you so much for that. So I guess to make it simple, if you are starting to make money on Amazon, it's better for you to consult an accountant to know what is the best option for you instead of you just opening an LLC in the US, right? So so I think we're clear on that because that's the main one. So the next one that you said are like there's a lot of mistake is the EIN. So what are the common mistakes that people do usually with EIN?
So on the US side, of course, when
application?
we are selling into US, we're trying to get a EIN, which is Employer Identification Number. I mean, so that is just like a BN on the Canadian side. And then there's an application which is SS4. When you're filling that application out, there are certain questions on there that you have to say yes or no to. And then a lot of Canadians don't understand, even though they might have corporation, or let's say, for example, they have some other entity on the Canadian side. When they're filling out that application, the biggest mistake that I've seen is that they check the box for the LLC. This is what they said. They're saying that, yes, this is a LLC, and then, it's one member. And what happens is by default, even though you might be a corporation on the Canadian side, but you get an EIN, which says that you are a pass-through entity, a sole proprietorship. This is what you end up happening. And then again, another problem, because we normally ask for a letter, say, what we want to see what you have done in terms of the EIN. And then we end up seeing something where it says that this is a disregarded entity. This is a sole proprietorship, technically, for tax purposes. And then, this is how it's going to be taxed. We have to go through a process again to change the type of entity. So it's very important that when you fill out the application for the SS4 for the EIN, you make sure that you fill it out correctly. Make sure that you properly understand what you're saying yes to, because that's how the IRS is going to have you classified in their tax system. We don't want the initial classification to be wrong, because if that's wrong, then we have to file another form to fix it. So I've seen a lot of Canadians, I know that we are DIY people. We would like to do it ourselves, but they don't understand a lot of simple yes or no can really change stuff on the US side. It is as complicated. On the Canadian side, it's a business number. It's not as complicated, but on the US side, it is. So we make sure that we fill out that form correctly. We make sure that we don't say if it's not a LLC, we don't say it is. And then even if sometimes people, what they do is like they say they have two owners, and then I've seen it where they will say it is LLC and then have two people on there. And then what the IRS is going to do is by default, if it's an LLC with two people, they're going to make it as a partnership, which is even more wrong, because on the Canadian side, you might be a corporation, and the next thing with corporation with two shareholders, and the next thing on the US side become a partnership. So again, EIN application, it looks simple, it's one page, but I've seen a lot of mistakes on those EIN app. And then again, we have to fill out another form, get it corrected, and correct the filing the proper federal tax form. So that's the number two mistake that we
make. I have yes. So I have a question for you. Is it really a must to get an EIN number? So I read online, like some people, they say, oh, once you get an EIN, you open a can of worms. So they're not suggesting to get it. So as cross-border CPA, do you recommend to really get an EIN even if we're not going to have a business entity in the US? And what is the benefit of getting it? There's also a question here: does having an EIN create additional paperwork requirement at the tax time? So what's your take on this EIN
So
opening?
definitely, I mean, so look, you are selling into a different country, right? You're not selling in Canada. You're selling into the United States. You're getting income from US. This is US source income. That's technically you're selling to a US person living in the US from Canada. You're not selling into Canada only. So it becomes a US, it is a US driven income. And then so that's when you're trying to do business into the United States, you are supposed to register for the EIN. That's the logic behind it. So in this way you could be selling into any other country, and then they might say, okay, there's no tax, but that this is something that comes with selling online. So you're selling from here in the US to US customers, and then so that creates US source income. And then for that we gotta have EIN to make sure that because it is US source income, in some cases there's no tax treaty. I mean, then there will be US taxes. In our case, we do have US Canada tax treaty. And in order to get the benefit of the US tax, US and Canada tax treaty, we have to have that EIN. How do they identify you? How do they know that this is you? And then this is one thing in terms of identification, and also selling into US. You must, because I don't want in the future. I mean, but let's say when you're selling more, they will have information. Amazon is also sharing information. It's not just Amazon that you're selling in Canada. Let's say you're selling through United States. They have information too, right? So this is not just one place that you're saying that I'm okay. No, this is you're by law you're supposed to get EIN, and then this is because you're selling into the United States to US customers, becoming a US source income, and then the US can tax you on that income. This is how this is why the EIN is required.
Okay, and all we need to do is to submit the specific form every year, right?
Right. So if you're a corporation, that's 1120F and 8833, that's the form that you need to submit every year.
Okay, and Mohammed, I want to ask you personally, is your office still doing this? Like, can the viewers actually reach out to you, or you're not taking clients right now? So I don't know what's your status, because I know you're such a busy office, right? Like, can you do that for people like Amazon sellers? Like, for example, my students is interested in getting your service. Can you do that for them?
Yes, definitely we can help them. We can help them get the EIN number from the United States. And then, so there's a different process because you're not a US person, there's a different process that goes into it, but we can definitely help them.
Okay, and how about filing the form every year? Do you also do that kind of service?
Yes, we do that. So and then good thing is because we are registered in the United States too, we can file this form electronically. There are a lot of Canadian accountants or US accountants that are in Canada that they don't have the support system or the software. We can actually file this form electronically with the IRS. A lot of people mail this form, but we have the capability to e-file those forms.
So perfect. So for those of you who will watch this video in long term, just contact. I'm gonna post this in YouTube, and I'm going to put in the description below like the contact information of Mohammed. And for those of you who are here today, I'm gonna give you also information via email on how to contact him in case you're interested, because to be honest, it's so hard to find a cross-border CPA right now to be able to work with you, right? So there's a question here regarding EIN still. I'm gonna ask this already, so while we're on the topic, it says here that if you get an EIN, is it specific or does it apply to all US states? Can it be applied for the telephone, and does it cost anything?
I mean, this is more, you're getting it. So this is only for at the federal level. The EIN is only at the federal level. It's not a state registration. It's a federal registration. The form that is supposed to be filed is called SS4. That's the form that needs to be filled out and filed with the IRS, but it's only at the federal level. It's not at the state level.
Mm-hmm. So can they apply it via phone? Because I think you can call a number in order for you to get this number, correct?
You can call them, but I wouldn't recommend. I would do a paper application because that's what foreign person are eligible to do, and then fax to them. That's the better way because they fax the information back to you, and then you also get a letter in the
Mm-hmm.
mail. I would
Okay.
that's the best way to go about it.
And does it cost anything to get this EIN number?
So it is no, there's no cost from the IRS.
Okay. And they're saying, can you please give the form numbers again that we need for EIN?
It is called SS4.
SS4. Okay, so thank you so much for that. So let's move on to another issues that you usually encounter, U.S. Nexus sales tax compliance. So actually, for me, I'm a little bit confused of this. So can you tell us a little bit more what is actually a Nexus and how is Nexus for sales tax purposes defined for Canadian sellers in the U.S. and what activities can it trigger it?
Excuse me. Yes. So nexus technically means, it's a connection. It could be any type of nexus. It could be an economic nexus, could be a physical nexus. There's too many types of nexus. So nexus, what we're saying is that it is a term that connects you to that state. And then how do you get connected to that state? Is, in our case, which is the sales tax, we call it economic nexus. So nexus, technically, a couple of years back, there was a Supreme Court case between Wayfair and then there was another entity. What it ended up doing was that, it allows state to collect sales tax even if you're selling from outside of the state. So in the US, when you are considered a foreign entity, even from state to state, even though that's not the case on the Canadian side, but on the US side, you could be let's say you're registered in one state, and in Texas, you sell it into Arizona. For Arizona, you become a foreign entity. This is how it's done there. Even from state to state, it's considered foreign entity. And then so when you're selling into a state, and then every state has its own threshold. So that means what they're saying is that, let's say, for example, one state we'll pick Arizona again. Let's say they're saying that either you sell up to 200 transactions or 100,000, the value of those transactions. It could be either or. If you meet one of those thresholds, you are establishing economic nexus in our state. That means you're selling enough for us to say that, or for you to collect sales tax from the people that are living in that state. So even if you're selling online, technically, Amazon does a lot of the sales tax for you. But let's say if you're selling through Shopify, Shopify will not, it's not collecting sales tax. But what Shopify is doing is also, keeping a tally of number of transactions or the amount of sales that you're doing in that state. And then if you do cross that threshold, so it's just not Shopify threshold, it's also Amazon plus Shopify threshold. We have to understand this because a lot of people they only look at Shopify, and even though they're selling on Amazon, because you're selling as one through two different platforms. So let's say if you sell 50 on Amazon, number of sales, and then you do 150 on Shopify, that's 200 transactions. Once you meet that threshold, you're supposed to collect sales tax, which is considered HST or GST on our side, from the individual that are living in that state that you're selling to. And then so this is what the economic threshold, the nexus is all about. Nexus is all about, yes, you can sell to this state without collecting sales tax initially. And then once you do meet the threshold, then you're supposed to collect sales tax from your own clients or your customers living in that state. And that's what happens. So initially, a lot of sellers, when they start out, of course, they're not there yet. But in overall, as time goes by, when they're selling into millions, definitely it could be a amount threshold, or it could be a number of transaction threshold, and then they have to register in that state as a foreign to collect sales tax, and then once they're selling to that state, they have to collect sales tax, remit sales tax to the state, and then move on. Your job is to collect and remit.
Mm-hmm. So for us Canadian exclusive Amazon sellers, so we're not doing Shopify or anything like that. Do we still need to be concerned of this nexus?
No, I mean, so
Because
Amazon does everything for you. You establish nexus or not, they're collecting sales tax and they're remitting sales tax on your behalf. So Amazon does a good job. I mean, they take away that whole burden from you, but not Shopify.
So basically, we don't need to worry about that, right?
No.
So what are the common mistakes that you usually see in terms of Nexus for a lot of your clients?
I mean, so if other than Amazon, I mean, the biggest issue is, of course, that they don't keep track. They don't understand this. They're not aware of this. I know in some cases the Shopify tells you, okay, this state you might have to register, but they don't really pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
And then
So,
then
but
and then go
so
ahead.
if, for example, with me, I used to sell also in eBay, right? There's something like an app that I used to use that can connect my Amazon store into eBay, so I sell also in eBay. So that's considered already like because we're out of Amazon, so I need to be careful. Like if I'm selling on eBay, I should also be tracking my sales for that, right?
Yeah. So whenever you make a sale, if there is no sales tax, that means you are. If there's no collection of sales tax, that means this is going towards Nexus, right? So Amazon is whenever you're selling, you can see Amazon collected sales tax from the customer that you sold to. And then so they're doing that job.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you see the sales tax being collected from Amazon, I mean you're okay. But once you don't see it, that's where this economic nexus, this nexus comes in, and then that's where the problem is.
I see. So that's very informative because personally for me, I also don't understand that fully, but now I get better understanding about it. So how about for the Canadian federal or provincial registration? Is there any common mistakes that you see from your clients?
I mean, so I get this question asked so many times, like, what is better? What is better? What is it provincial? Is it federal? Is it provincial? To me, it's irrelevant. It could be federal, it could be provincial, depending upon what you're looking for. There is no preference. I mean, as long as it's a corporation, that's what it comes down to. But this is everyday questions. Like, should I do provincial? Should I do federal?
Okay.
Go
So
ahead.
maybe what we can do is we can ask you, what is the advantage of opening a federal and what is the advantage of opening only provincial and or disadvantage? Maybe you can give us an idea because I understand because I know that I also get questions like that and they're so confused usually on what to open because they have this option when they try to open and they're so scared to try to make a mistake. So usually you get these questions a lot, right? So what is the difference and what are the advantages and disadvantages?
I mean, to me, of course, to me, there are not much differences. This is for me looking at from tax perspective. You can be federal and then be selling into all the provinces. This is okay, and then you could be provincial, be selling into all the provinces. So I know there are people that get confused, but I can go into a lot more detail, but to be honest with you, I want to keep it simple. Whatever makes sense for you. In some cases, people say, you know what, I'm doing a unbranded, and then I have my own brand, and then I want to get that registered, and then I want to do this. And maybe in that case, federal makes more sense because you're doing it at the federal level, where you can have a trademark or you can have patents being recorded. But if you're just buying from a wholesaler and selling certain products, it's irrelevant. This is my case. Unless you're trying to you're coming up with a patent, you're doing some trademark, there's something out there for you. I feel the provincial will do the job as good as the federal.
Okay, perfect. So let's go to the questions. So I have a few questions here for you that a lot of our viewers are wanting to ask. So number one, I'll go because I know you're only up to max of 920, so I'm gonna make it quick. So when should a Canadian seller with a corporation established in Canada, BC, think about applying for sales tax permits for products sold in the USA on their own website or Shopify store and thereby start collecting sales tax on each product sold?
So again, once you establish Nexus, if you
Once
want
you
to
establish
establish
Nexus.
Nexus, yes. I mean, so if you're starting from Shopify, once you establish Nexus, you're supposed to register in that state for the sales tax number, and then it's as a foreign. Again, I told you from state to state is also foreign, and then in our cases we are also foreign, in registering into any state. So they allow foreign companies to register for sales tax collection.
Mm-hmm. And what is the threshold amount per month revenue-wise that the store needs to hit in any state in USA before even thinking about applying for the sales tax permit and charging sales tax for an item? Is there any app or software suggested by you to use to make sure we are charging and remitting the correct amount for the sales tax, especially if we are having a Shopify store? I don't know if you have some recommendation.
I mean,
And
so
and if
there are 50 states, Cheryl. There are 50 states. Every
mm-hmm,
state has its own sales tax rate, and then sometimes there are local sales tax rates. So depending upon the address the customer has, so it becomes tricky. Normally, let's say if you have 5 or 6 states, you can do this yourself. You can manage it. This is my personal opinion. But if it becomes more than this, there's softwares out there. I think one is TaxJar, one is Avalara, that can help you be in compliance with the state sales tax. What they do is they connect with your store, and then they are the one who are filing your information to the states automatically, filing all the forms automatically. But that's only if you're, in my opinion, if you cross 5 or more. It becomes the more you have to register. That means you're selling a lot, right? So the more you have to go into every state, it could be you could end up going into 20 states, 25 states if you're selling a lot, and then could be even more. So there are human errors, but if you get those softwares that can help you, I mean, that's one thing that I've seen. Sales tax registration only if you're trying to do Nexus. I know there are a lot of people who are buying from wholesalers, and they want to do the exemption, but that's a separate matter. But sales tax only if you meet the Nexus threshold.
okay, so I guess for them they need to, is IRS, does IRS have a site where they can look for like this number in terms of threshold
No, so this
amount
is
of
this is this is a state issue. So IRS does not have any information on this. So
okay.
there are certain websites that you can go to. I think I'm not sure if we have published this on our website either, but maybe we can publish this. But the numbers get updated every year from each state. So
Mm-hmm.
depending on what state you're selling the most, this is what it comes down to. Every state is going to have
Mm-hmm.
its own threshold. Some states have 100, let's say 100 transactions. Some states has 200 transactions or 100,000. Some has 250,000. Some states has 500,000. It really comes down to every state that you're selling into.
Wow. So I feel like I'm a little bit scared to sell on Shopify now with all this tax complication.
The-
Anyways, okay.
But it's manageable. It's manageable as long as you're making money. That's what matters, right? If you're
Yes.
making money, this can be done. It's not an issue.
Yeah, because you can always pay somebody like Mohammed to sort things out for you, right?
Yeah, but look,
Okay, so
initially, you're making less money. It's okay to do this on your own. Once you get into more complicated stuff, of course, I do want you to reach out to any cross-border accountant, because this is it becomes really complicated as it goes on. And then at the same time, there are things that we can do beforehand. So I want our clients to be proactive in terms of this. And then, of course, when you start selling new, there's things I want to keep it simple and sell your product, see what makes sense for you. But once you find that product, I want the next step is to find someone that can help you understand, okay, how can we manage this better?
yeah, and I think as an entrepreneur, I think it's important for us. It's better for us to pay someone professional right off the bat because it will hunt us along the way. Like instead of us making money, we're gonna lose money if we don't know what we're doing. We're trying to cut back on expenses and then doing things on our own that we don't really understand. And then on the long run, suddenly, like you realize that you made mistakes and it's harder to correct it, and then you end up spending more money, right? So that's
That's
my
true.
take on that.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah. Okay.
Understand cross-border selling. I mean, understand the basic of it, and then take step by step, and then go from there. But of course, without a professional, I don't think so. The U.S. tax is complicated, and then it can really put you in trouble. And that's not only on the U.S. side, but also on the Canadian side, right? It's not just the U.S. we're
Mm-hmm.
worried about. It's also the Canadian side we're worried about.
Yeah. Okay. So the next question is, since the U.S. tax system is complex, which are some of the most important things we need to keep in mind as a Canadian seller selling physical products to customer located in the U.S.? I guess you mentioned it, Nexus, that's the most important one, and then make sure for the registration. So the ones that we talk about are the most important thing that I guess they need to watch out for. But do you have any additional thing that you think they need to be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, so the next big thing that I want to make sure that they're aware of, establishing permanent establishment in the US or having a strong connection to US. This could be through an agent that you hire in the US, could be an office that you open up in the US. There are certain things, or it could be a contract that you sign in the US. These are some of the few things that can create a notion of create a connection to US, which can really change the tax for you. And then so I want to make sure that we stay Canadian, we sell from Canada, we don't hire any agent, we don't hire, sign any contracts, we don't establish an office in the US, because that can establish a PE, which is permanent establishment. And then once that is done, what happens is any income that you're earning from the US, if that happens, the US will tax you on that income, and the tax
Okay,
rate
so
will not work.
that's really good. Okay, so it says here, can Mr. Akif send us all the details for the pricing if someone wants to get LLC along with registration company, etc. in Texas? Do we need to file the tax in Canada as well? So I guess it was answered already, right? So it's not recommended to really get LLC, especially if you're not making money yet. It complicates your taxes in the US, both in the US and Canada. So I think if you can just rewatch this and so that you would know exactly what we're talking about here, right? So,
Sure.
but if you end up wanting to register because you're making good money, I think it's better for you to contact Mr. Akif directly for you to inquire personally, and he can advise you tailored for your own business if what's the best option for you, right? So is it true? So last one question here. If you guys have question, let me know, because he's only available in 10 minutes, and then we need to let him go. So one question here is it true that you need to file for taxes more often with a federal corporation rather than a provincial one? This is interesting question.
No, I mean, the tax filing is the same. If there's expenses, their income, the tax needs to be filed in both cases.
So there's only one, right? No matter what, federal or provincial, you only need to file taxes once a year for that, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so Martin is asking also, this means that we should not source product from US, as that would create a connection. So do you what she means is that is sourcing products. So for example, for us Canadian seller, either we buy products in Canada, which the one that I'm teaching, but a lot of Canadian sellers actually buys from the US as well. So you buy product from the US, you sell in the US. Does it establish a connection now to the US because we're buying locally there?
No, that does not. I mean, so you can buy from the US, from a wholesaler, from a retailer, you can buy from there. That doesn't establish a connection.
Okay, so that's good to know. Okay, so I guess that's all the questions for today. Any other questions you guys have before we let him go? Do you have any additional information you want to share, Mohammad, before we let you go for this session?
Definitely. I mean, let's keep it simple, keep it easy. If you're selling to US, get the EIN, file the form that is required every year, and then you'll be okay on the US side. This is the simplest advice I can give to anyone. Of course, once they grow, they want to go into US more, they want to establish entity, we can help them with this. We can help them with the EIN registration. We can help them with the entity registration. That can come with stage as we are growing. But initially, I want them to be simple. I want them to focus on their product. I want them to sell. I want them to make money. This is what I want them to do. I want all the clients. And then so I would keep it simple, get a Canadian corporation, sell everything through Canada, get the EIN in the US, file the forms every year, and then make sure that you're compliant. So this is a compliance issue. It's not a tax issue. And then I want to make sure that this compliance carries on. And then, if you want to move further, then of course we can move further. We can help you every step of the process. So we can help you with the EIN, we can help you with the 1120F filings, and then we can help you with the entity registration if you're required. And then the sales tax registration is a separate matter, and then it has much more detail. If you do establish nexus, or if you want us to, we do work where we come in and we look at your each state that you're selling into, and then tell you that you have established a nexus or not. We can help you with that too. So we get, we have updated numbers every year from all the states. And then so where we know, where how things are moving for each state too. So we can help you with that too. But initially, I want you to focus on your product, making sales and making money.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mohammed. Actually, like, we're really thankful for you today. Gina said, I want to thank Mohammed for coming again and to let him know how much I appreciate the info that I share with our students and refer them to the previous YouTube video. Actually, like, there's so many people who benefited for that first interview we had. And I'm happy that you're back, like, because many people are asking me, who can we reach out to? And I said, I'm not sure with Mohammed if he's still taking clients, but I'm happy to know that you're willing to at least help us with EIN, help us with filing, because that's what we actually need. And for some reason, I cannot find anybody who's like a cross-border CPA, and nobody would want to touch this issue in terms of local CPA who's not doing cross-border. So thank you so much. So for those of you who are watching and you want to reach out to him, I will give you the information. I will send email for those who are like register on this webinar. And on YouTube, I'm going to post his information. Please reach out to him directly because I am not connected to him. I'm just here to give you all the information, and he's the one who's going to help you with all that you need. Okay, so thank you so much, guys. And thank you so much, Mohammed. Have a good day,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you. Nice meeting you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a nice day.